Everybody, welcome to the live show on Wild Ginger Running. Here tonight, I'm really excited to say we've got Samantha Gash, endurance runner, inspirational speaker, World Vision ambassador, and very importantly, mum to Harry. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us all the way from Australia. There's a little bit of a delay on the line, but it's the other side of the world. So it's just fantastic that you've got up at 5:30 this morning to talk to us. Just give us a little insight. Where are you right now? Like, you do a lot of traveling for your job. So just tell everybody where you are right now.
Yeah, so I live in the Dandenong Ranges, which is a national park 35 kilometres away from Melbourne. So, yeah, that's where I am in my home with my family.
Fantastic. And so just describe what your job is now. Like, what do you do sort of day to day?
Yeah, I have, I guess, a bunch of things that I do. I used to be a lawyer, but I guess now I'm a corporate speaker. So I will travel probably a couple of times a week within like the state that I live in or other states, sometimes overseas, for corporate speaking engagements. I do work with the charities that I'm associated with, which is World Vision and the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and then kind of prepping for the projects that I'm doing or training.
Yeah, and fitting it all in. It's incredible how you fit it all in. But I just want to, first of all, I just want to sort of rewind backwards, because I've seen some Instagram posts of yours where you said you'd never thought you'd be doing this kind of work, and you never thought you'd be running across continents and things like that. So just tell us all, how did you first get into running?
Yeah, so no, I was a pretty, no, it wasn't like I was unfit, but I didn't really take part in anything to do with sports. I was definitely a bit of a bookworm, and I was more focused on the academic side of my life within school, and even kind of like when I left school. And I kind of took up running, and I guess doing a marathon to start with, because I just realised that I never ever did anything when I didn't know what the outcome would be. And so I needed to shake things up in my life, where I kind of entered into the unknown space where anything could happen. You aren't clear on what the end destination might be. And so that's kind of why I did my first marathon. I just wanted to have a completely new experience in a space that scared me a little bit. And it scared me because I always told myself that I wasn't good at sports. So I was like, okay, well, what happens if I actually try? And that's kind of what happened. Because I wasn't good at it, I wouldn't try. So it was really this fake narrative that I told myself.
Wow, well, that's inspirational just to start with. You just thought, right, well, here's this thing that I don't think I'm good at, so I'm just going to try and do it. It's like sort of having a phobia, isn't it? And exposing yourself to it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when we're younger, we play out these ideas in our head, and they can filter through to our adulthood really with no basis. I always think that I'm not a good cook because I wasn't I didn't grow up cooking in a family, and so I try and avoid it at all costs. But the reality is I just don't try. I don't go to a cooking course, or I'm not not naturally inept at cooking. I just haven't tried. And the same thing with me being physically active.
Well, just imagine if you entered a cooking contest. Maybe you'd just be up there with the best in 10 years' time if it was anything like you're running. and just before we get started, I've got some questions from my audience members here to go through. But just before I start with those, so now that you're a fully established runner, you've run all these amazing endurance events and races and challenges. What does running mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Running for me is I see it as a massive privilege that my body allows me to do it. So I associate it with a lot of gratitude. And I also have this feeling that it could be taken away from me at any point for whatever reason. And because of that, I also like to have a detached relationship from it. I always want to think of myself as more than the run. because I think when you really embed yourself in running, you race around the world, other people describe you as a runner. Like, what happens if one day you couldn't do that? And so after I did a couple of projects, probably I think it was like in 2015, after I ran across South Africa with Mimi Anderson, I just remember saying, like, I want to have a healthier relationship with this thing that I do and not like describe myself as a runner, which is probably why I call myself an endurance athlete. And I've now picked up, adventure racing. So I mountain bike, I kayak. I just like my body to be physically active, and I like it to be outdoors. And in the way that I do it, it can be different. It can be different modes of movement. That's kind of. I think I wouldn't say I'm obsessed in running. I see it as freedom. I see it as like an opportunity to be outdoors, but I also don't see it as everything.
That's really refreshing to hear. It's really good to hear as well. It's like Emily Forsberg. She describes herself as a lover of the mountains, so she doesn't actually describe herself as a runner. So it's like everyone should know running is not everything. And so I've got a question. Yeah, I've got a question from Guy Greatorex here, and he wants to know what started you off doing those 4 desert challenges. And he wants to know also which one was most challenging and your favourite one.
Okay, so I signed up for the Atacama Desert in Chile really after I did my first marathon, within like a couple of days afterwards. Wow. Because I met someone who was going to do the entire 4 desert series. She's a lady called Linda Quirk from the US, and she was in her 50s. And we just run this marathon, and I couldn't even walk up the stairs because my legs were so sore. And there was this 50-year-old telling me she was about to do like 4, 250-kilometer races in 1 year. And I guess part of me wanted to be a part of one of her events and like be there to witness someone who I was inspired by to do it. And then I just thought, you know what? There's nothing. When I did my marathon, like the only reason I finished because I had a friend running with me. And I thought if I did a race on the other side of the world where I didn't really know anyone, I could truly test myself. But also it was on the other side of the world. So if I didn't finish it, no one would really know. So I wanted to still I guess I was still fearful of failure at the same time. And then like I got hooked. I got there and I'm like, actually, like we're always influenced by other people, positively or negatively. Like it's our choice. We can be influenced by strangers, by people that we know. Don't be afraid to like utilize that. So like it wasn't even the running that I was like kind of hooked on. It was just like this experience of being in the middle of nowhere, self-survival, carrying everything that you needed in a pack on your back, meeting awesome people. And that's after that I decided to do the entire 4 in 1 year. It wasn't at the beginning.
Ah, I see. And so which one did you find the most difficult?
I guess the first one was the most difficult, which was Chile. And I think it's because I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. There was a lot of naivety in that. And I'd say, like, technically it's the harder one, at least the course back in 2010 when I did it. I don't know what the courses are like now. So there was a lot of salt flats. There were sand dunes as well. Like there was a lot more water crossings, which means that then you're jumping from the water to the sand. So chances of blisters. So technically it's a harder race, but also like I just was like, what is this whole thing like? And afterwards I kind of knew what I was getting myself into a bit more. So they were incrementally a little bit easier, although always hard. And what's my favorite one? Well, it's like choosing a favorite kid. I only have, I presume wouldn't have an answer for that. And each one so much about myself. The landscape was always different. I could say that the most stunning one was Chile. Egypt was fascinating because all you could see was sand dunes for like kilometers, and it really brought to perspective like mankind in the space of like environment. China, the weather was so intense, but to get through that, like there's such a sense of satisfaction to have like coped with that weather. And Antarctica although it was like running in circles, which was a little bit bizarre. Really, the entire experience was just like this euphoric, I can't believe I'm 26 years old and get to experience this.
Yeah, well, they sound incredible, and I do want to get, because you said you'd learnt loads doing all 4 of them, and we're just going to get a bit of your advice over the next few minutes, but I just want to read out some of the live comments which are coming in now, because we've got loads of people watching live. So we've got Bram Van Diemen. He says, "Hi Samantha, love your Instagram," and he and James McMurdo says he's loving the feed, and then Robert Montgomery says hello everyone, and Purple Running Whales says, "Phew, I thought I was going to miss this." So
me too. That was
yeah, it's always a bit temperamental, isn't it, with all the connections and everything. And then we've got this really great question from Bram Van Diemen. So he's just asking here about your drinking regime during races like that, as he says he's had difficulties with drinking during running, and last Sunday he found out that 1 litre over 40k is just too little. So have you got any sort of general advice on drinking for people in doing these big endurance challenges?
So I want to preface the drinking conversation by saying that I'm not very good in my day-to-day life with drinking water. I'm seeing it and I'm like feeling thirsty because I need to drink it. So I would say I have a lower fluid requirement than most people. I'm under 5 foot. I'm definitely quite small. So yeah, I don't drink as much as most people. I should drink more, but I don't. But when I race, I'm so switched on to it. When I race, I think of like self-survival, and I think of the body as a vehicle to do something. And so therefore I treat it like this, if we want to be these peak performing machines, we have to do everything optimally in order to allow ourselves to do these incredible feats of like endurance. So I can't ever just have a huge gulp of water. It's just hard. Like you've got to know what's the climate like, how much salts are you the type of person to lose? Or in these hot environments, you're always replacing your salts more than you're replacing your fluids as well. And so I'm just the person that like every 5 minutes I'm having a sip. And it's kind of like I do that on clockwork, like every 5 minutes, get something in the mouth. But then I always make sure that I have a soft flask with me, that I make sure there is something in that soft flask until I see the finishing line. Because if, you can't always tell from a hydration pack if there's how much liquid's in there. So now I carry a soft flask and it's like my emergency supply. And then once I see the finishing line, I finish it all. Because I know that I can. So that won't really help on volume, but I think that's my strategy.
Yeah, I think this your advice there on just keep sipping the water is really, really good. It's really, really helpful. And also to put electrolytes in, like salt tablets in as well. And you do just have to judge for yourself, don't you? At the end of the day, you've got to practice these things, because everybody's body is going to be different. So that's really helpful advice. Thank you. So I hope that helped Bram Van Diemen there. And then I was just going to say, I noticed you racing in over the sand in gaiters that come quite far up. So, like, how did you cope with blisters and things from getting sand in the shoes and stuff like that?
Well, I didn't really get blisters because of them. So those are, and like they look ridiculous on me because I'm so short, they're way too big. But like I just did not really care about the fashion back then. And I don't really now. Like again, everything's like utility. What's this for? What's this for? And that's a silk parachute gaiter that I got from the UK. You can't, like back in 2010, I couldn't get that in any other country. I ordered them from a company called Sandbaggers. And that's because I'd seen other people use them. And when I started to research, like that just seemed like it made the most sense. Now there are smaller ones now. I know Raid Light does like a more material one, but for me it was so light. I got it stitched on by a cobbler in whatever country that I was running. Stitching, not using the Velcro, because the Velcro in my opinion, gets the sand caught in it, and it's just a big old hot mess. So when you stitch it in, yes, you impact your shoes, but I'm happy to give a pair of shoes to the sand gods to not get blisters. And yeah, and basically when you take off your shoe, like you're removing the sand gaiter stays on it. You just kind of like take it off that way.
So it's like your shoe has a long tight coming out of it, and you just put your foot all the way in and then tie it up around your leg.
Yeah, there was 2 like places where you can like draw it in, which means you can open it up, which means it's very easy to take your shoe off and tie the laces.
Good. Oh, well, these are all really good tips. That's fantastic. And just on with the theme of gear here, how did you pack light enough? Like, did you take any like little luxuries during your trip, or what did you get rid of?
No, again, like I always have to think about my size because I'm carrying. On day one, I was sometimes carrying 25% of my body weight on day one. And that's what I did in the first race. And then I was just like, no, I have to be more critical with my decision-making process. So the question that I ask is this essential for me to go across the desert? And, I'm probably someone who can't have as many luxuries. So I'm very critical on my food choice. I'm really looking for the lightest, high-calorie dense food, like salt and vinegar chips, crushed up, put in like to a Ziploc bag. I had a lot of ramen noodles. In fact, I sometimes would enjoy them more than the freeze-dried meals. So I definitely over-indexed on them. I would have hot chocolate sachets for night times, and I would have my own like collection of porridge and powder milk for breakfast. So I was pretty simple with the food that I took. I think they make you have 2,000 calories per day, and I wouldn't like really go anything over. And then all the same pairs of clothes every single day. And then I would have a change of clothes for nighttime. I would have a sleeping bag. I didn't even take a sleeping mat for the Sahara. And that's kind of, that's all I would take. And obviously like health and hygiene stuff, but I would saw off the handle to my toothbrush. Like probably didn't do that, but like I was pretty pedantic about creating like a really small pack.
Yeah, well, every little helps, doesn't it? And so obviously doing things like that really help you to prepare mentally as well. I was just going to ask you what other things you do to prepare your mind for this, because it's one thing training and banging out the miles, but I know one of my audience members just recently DNF'd a race, and he knew he was capable physically of the distance, but he just didn't feel right in the head. So have you got any advice for pushing through those hard times?
Well, the first one is you very rarely can simulate the conditions that you're going to face out there. Sorry.
Morning, Harry. We'll talk about you soon.
My mate. Oh, okay. So you can't simulate. You can't simulate the desert. You can't simulate the heat. Mark, I can. He's fine.
Yeah, you can go get him. We'll chat to him too.
We'll see if he self-settles now. I would also create situations of stress in my training that that would help me kind of feel that I was mentally prepared for the challenge. So I would put what I do. I did like altitude training. I would, do a lot of hot yoga to kind of prep myself for the mental. Like I didn't used to like hot yoga. I like it now, but back in the day it was quite new. And I would do back-to-back hot yoga sessions to just feel that uncomfortableness of having to stick in that same spot. So that's kind of like what you can do for training, like simulate tough conditions that might not be exactly the same, but like are uncomfortable for you. And then like mentally, it's not just for me about visualizing the finishing line, which I think is really, really important. You've got to see yourself doing the thing that you're trying to do. I'm going to give him like 45 more seconds to cry.
Yeah, no problems at all. Like you can go, you need just do whatever you need to do. It's no problems.
So yeah, I'm gonna. But I also like to visualize all the challenges that might actually come my way that could stop me doing the race. So I write them down. I go like, one of the challenge could be getting blisters. And I kind of play that out. I'm like, okay, so like how bad could these blisters be? And I kind of try and like experientially feel what that could be like. And then I just make a contract within my mind of what's going to be the potential for me to quit.
Yeah.
So what could that look like? I always say exhaustion's not a reason to quit for me. Because we're always going to be tired, and like mentally our mind's going to give up sometimes, equally to our body or vice versa. We actually can cope with pretty bad blisters if we look after them, if we treat them straight away. So, yeah, it's like about making a decision in your mind about how much do you want this, what degree of suffering are you willing to cope or go through. And just being aware of that stuff kind of also makes you do all the hard work to make sure those things aren't an issue. Going in blindly is never a great idea. So it's like, how are you arming yourself with the reality, and then how are you trying to mitigate all those potential risks?
That is a fantastic answer, and I think that's really helped a lot of people watching this here. Bram Van Diemen in particular said, "Good question, Claire, that would be me. Thank you for asking her." So that's fantastic.
It's all of us. It's not just Bram. It's like we all have the potential to like pull out of a race before like our physical limits.
Yeah, I was telling him that like everyone DNFs. Like Kilian Jornet got stung by a bee last year at UTMB and he didn't even start the race. Well, he DNF'd the race, didn't he? So it's just about what pain you're willing to go through for what kind of performance. And we've got some comments here from Hiker Yoga about the sauna workouts as well. So they're pretty impressed that you're doing the sauna workouts. Oh, and some comments here. Something from John Gardner. I hope we get to see the wee little one, but he seems to have quietened down now. So
it's still murmuring in the background. It's always a chance.
Yeah, or just if you need to go get him and feed him or whatever, then you're very welcome to pop off and just do whatever you need to.
Sure.
And so, yes, then you got hooked on racing. You started racing all over the globe, including India, which looks amazing. And my audience are keen to watch the film. So do you know, like, can you just tell us a teeny bit about it and where you can watch the film?
Yes. So basically in 2016, I did a west to east run of India, and it was about 3,500 Ks. Do you know what? Like, I know exactly how many Ks it is, but I'm trying to like not be so uptight on like specifics or numbers, because I'm just like, who gives a no one cares how safe it was, and it's so arbitrary anyway. So that was my first time kind of being vague, and I still had to qualify it. The project took 77 days. And that project I started to think about in 2011. It just shows how, like, for me, full of like big things like that, it takes time to kind of create the dream, which is really raw, put it into a workable blueprint and like make it a reality. And I think that time for me positions me to actually really give it a proper crack and to put all the right things in play. I speak to a lot of people now who are excited about the ideas of expeditions. And I try and be always very obviously supportive, but like don't feel like you have to rush it. Take the time. Like, your logistics are highly complicated, but also you might not be in the right time. And like in 2011, I didn't have the experience to do it. I needed to do a bunch of other stuff. That's really interesting that you say that, because there's also a member of my audience he's only started running in August. He's called Rob Jordan, and he really wants to run he wants to do the National Three Peaks, and he's like, do you think it's a good idea? And I'm like, yes, it's an amazing idea, but just take it slowly, like maybe recce one peak at a time. I think he's really excited, which is great, and he wants to just dive in at the deep end because he sees people like you. But I was trying to tell him that even people like you take like 5 years to do projects, so it's like just build slowly. Yeah, it's such a hard one because, like, obviously with the 4 deserts, like I entered a baptism of fire experience and like went quite full on early on. But I think there's a difference for me. There's a difference to the race than expedition because you're so supported. I'm going to get my little man. I'll be back.
Brilliant. So thank you everybody just for holding on for 1 second whilst Sam goes to see Harry. So she gave birth to Harry about a year ago now, and I've just been looking on her Instagram, and it is absolutely incredible what she does with him in tow. So they just did a trip. They've been all over the world. Sam speaks at conferences and things like that all over the world, and she takes this little guy with her. So let's just crack on. Here we go. Here's Sam with the lovely Harry. Wow, isn't he gorgeous? He is so beautiful, Sam. I've seen, he's so cute. On Instagram, he's dancing to music all the time. He's so cute.
He danced before he could run, so it's something that Mum's worked very hard on, and he just has really beautiful sense to music.
Oh, well, he sounds a lot happier now that he's with his mum. So this is a great time for us to move on to the questions about Harry, seeing as he's joining us here.
Yeah, and I will give you the Run India film.
Oh, yes, sorry, we hadn't quite finished that.
I wasn't remembering. We've applied for a couple of film festivals, and we basically have to wait till how they play out, and then I'll make it available online. So probably from in a couple of months' time, it'll be online, and I'll kind of send you a message so you can let your audience know.
Amazing.
But I do want to finish off with the point of jumping in the deep end, because I just think really good ideas and really big projects, they require time, not just the time to pull it together, which is a big thing. You want to make sure if you're interested in creating a project, potentially if it's a project that you want to make, an impact for a social cause, whatever it is, the time's required to fundamentally put it together. But I think our individual minds need the time to prepare for physically pushing themselves repeatedly over multiple days in really hard conditions. So I guess my advice is don't feel like you need to rush these things. Make sure that you're really sold on them so you can give them a really good crack when you start to do it.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you for that. And that just sort of reminds me of Costa Rica, where we met about how many years? 3 years ago now, 2015.
Oh, 4, even there.
Yeah, and it was. I remember on day 2, I was running really fast down all the hills, the downhill, because I can actually run fast downhill, and I was not as fit as everyone else. And I was talking to Sam. She was just like, "Have you ever done a multi-day race before, Claire?" And I was like, no. And you were like, oh, okay, and then you just let me carry on my merry way, and then I was like, oh, I know what she means now, because the next day I had really bad DOMS. I was like, oh, this lady knows what she's on about.
What a twat I sound like, though. That race, I had the worst diarrhea of my life.
Oh, yeah, I was really ill too. We both dropped out, didn't we, on one day, and then we got back in, didn't we, for the last day?
Oh, my gosh, I remember. Oh, yeah, it was full on, wasn't it, Harry?
Yeah, it was full on. But yeah, anyway, back to Harry. We've got everybody is really enjoying seeing Harry on the live chat. John Gardner says adorable, so that's lovely. So Harry's. Am I right in thinking he's about 12 months? No, he must be older than 12 months now. But anyway, so he's a year old-ish. How did it go when you were running while you were pregnant with him? Have you got any tips for pregnant runners?
Oh, my tip is to just listen to your body. I ran quite a bit till about 20 weeks, and then I got really sick. I got a condition called, hey, Harry, let go of Mummy's hand. I got a condition called postular tachycardia syndrome, and it meant that I just could barely even walk. My heart rate would soar, my blood pressure would drop. I spent a lot of time in and out of the hospitals, and so I couldn't. And that was even though it was quite full on and it was quite scary, I wasn't allowed to drive, I wasn't allowed to be on my own. But it just reminds me that I'm doing this huge thing for my body, and that's what I need to prioritise.
Yeah, definitely. So listen to the body would be the tip for when you're running while pregnant. And then what's your world been like since he's been born? Because obviously it's a massive, just total change a total shift in your worldview, surely.
It is, but also like, so I'm now a mum, but I also don't believe in like neglecting who I was for like 32 years of my life. It's this new part of my life. It's the most consuming, best way part of my life. But I also work on like, how do I retain like parts of me pre-motherhood, which I think makes me be a better mum because, it just, Harry gets me as who I am. And I had so many stories of friends who sometimes felt like in the first couple of years of their kid's life, they just let everything go of like the things that made them who they were beforehand, and they just felt like they were washing like their dreams away. So I really remember that conversation that I had with someone, and Harry comes everywhere with me, particularly in his first year of life. He came on like, some people probably won't approve of this, but like he flew with me 60 times because I'm a speaker and I'm around the country. And so he would come, and he was only I was only on stage for an hour, so he was just away from me from an hour, and then we get to spend the rest of the time together. So I'd see him at the AV desk, bobbing his head. Hi.
Waving. Hello.
So for me, like in his early years, like Harry is adaptable, and we have like routines of nighttime, but we're a lot more fluid in like how we parent and where we take him to as well. And the biggest thing is like, I just love it. Like it's the best new part of my life, and it's been like a real joy to become a mum.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And I'm just really impressed with you fitting it all in, because you only have 24 hours in a day. How do you prioritise running anymore now that you've got a little boy to look after?
So I take him with me a lot. I put him in a pram and take him. So he's like a trail baby. It's when he start being in a pram and first walking and obviously then running. I remember that I was like, what? Because he would love it. And I live up in a national park, and I once put my iPhone and videoed like what he could see. And I saw that it was just all these trees and leaves kind of joining together to make these patterns, and the sun would kind of come through the leaves. And I was like, no wonder he loves it. Like he's seeing like this, like it's like a show. Like he's seeing like an art show on display in nature. So like me getting back to fitness was actually just being outdoors with Harry to begin with, sharing like part of the world that I love with him. And it's still what I do for the most part. Like if I run with Harry, unless he might be in daycare or, my parents might have him. So Mark and I will go out for a run. But yeah, he's with me for most of the time.
Fantastic. And I saw on Instagram you did a breastfeeding tour of him as well, which I just thought was like really empowering, and just like, you go girl. Like so there's so many people now who are breastfeeding at races, breastfeeding at checkpoints, expressing milk and carrying on. We've got Jasmine Paris, we've got there was that Sophie, I can't remember her last name, from the UTMB, and it's just really empowering, isn't it? Like on the other hand, I was like, I thought you were allowed to have a rest when you have a baby, but no, you've got to do you can still do everything.
No, you don't really get a rest when you're having a baby. That's definitely one.
Yeah, well, we've got loads of respect for you on the group chat. We've got people saying little trail crusher in the making there. Guy Greatrex says magical.
He does love this, right?
Oh, don't worry, we'll let Mummy play with you soon, Harry. And Bran Van Diemen says it sounds like an amazing way to grow up. So everyone's thinking that is brilliant. So it's coming up for, we've been chatting for about 33 minutes now. So I just want to know, like, what are your future plans and what is most important to you before we let you carry on your day with your beautiful baby?
Okay, so oh gosh, it's I've got a couple of big projects coming up. Like I'm doing an adventure race this September with my partner, and so we're going to be away from our little one for for 2 weeks.
Really?
Which was like a really massive decision to make, but also we decided it was. We're lucky we have parental support from my parents who live close by, and they are like frothing at the opportunity to have Harry for 2 weeks.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was a big decision, but we also wanted to do something together, and that kind of was separate to Harry as well, but something that Harry could be proud of when he was old enough to kind of hear about it. So that's kind of the next thing that's coming up. So we're doing like a lot of mountain biking, and did an adventure race a couple of weekends ago to train for it. And then next year I'm taking a group of women who are also mothers, and we're doing a non-stop relay run across the Simpson Desert.
Oh,
wow. And we're raising funds for maternal health and education kind of initiatives in the most remote Australian Indigenous community, which is when I just had Harry, like I planned to do this trip before I had him, and I planned to do the run solo. And then I thought I could do it when he was like 6 months old. And then I was like, no, that's such a ridiculous idea. Because it just didn't seem right. And I think for me, like since being a mum, like the goal, I'm still very focused. I'm still very excited to do projects, but the goalposts change, and I'm more willing to go, no, that doesn't suit where I am right now. It doesn't suit my family. I'm going to park that for the moment until the timing feels right. So there's a bit more fluidity in what I typically would have been more rigid on my thinking. And so sorry.
Oh, sorry. You broke up a little bit when you said the name of the desert that you're running across. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, it's the Simpson Desert.
Oh, the Simpson Desert. That's in Australia then?
It's in Australia, yeah. And so there's you take them to childcare and they always get coughs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's 6 women. We're going to do a non-stop relay run, and we're all going to raise funds. And so it's really transformed what the concept of the project was, because initially it was going to be me trying to do a record-breaking run. And then I was like, I actually don't care about records. And what I'd actually love to bring more women, because we could actually, one, it's a great experience for all of them, but also we can raise more money because there's like now 5 other people who are sharing our why to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a long project.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely incredible. We'll all be following you as you do all these amazing projects. So just in the last couple of minutes, something's just started on my. The Stereophonics just started playing in my headphones, and I couldn't hear anything. Just in the last couple of minutes, where best can people follow you, and what are your Instagram handles and things like that?
Yeah, I'm a lot more active on Instagram than probably any other platform these days. So what's our Instagram handle, Harry? It's at Samantha Gash. At Samantha Gash. That's mummy.
Hello, Harry. Well, it's been absolutely lovely to talk to you, Sam. Thank you so much for all your desert advice, and thank you so much for all your great advice about the nature of challenges and things like that, and getting your head in the right space and making it right for you at the right time. So it's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you, and have a lovely day with your boisterous little boy. That's been amazing. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.
It's funny, you feel like to almost apologise for having a baby, but it's fine.
Don't apologise at all. This is part of your charm and who you are. See you.
Exactly.